So I'm a recovering alcoholic. I don't know if we talked about that in
Oh,
my
that's
story,
right. We haven't
but
talked about that today.
yeah,
Yeah.
I drank alcohol straight for 25 years probably. And I was a highly functional alcoholic, but who cares? I was still an alcoholic. I'm 6 years sober now, and I'm just I am so much more clear in my thinking and thought, and I feel so much better physically. I was
Hmm.
way out of shape. I was way overweight. I couldn't run 100 yards, and now run 3 to 5 miles, 3 to 5 times a week. I lift weights 4 or 5 times a week, and I'm just very active and healthy. And I want to give you, the people that you're in your audience hope, right? That I did this in in my 50s.
You're listening to When God Intervenes, the podcast where faith, hope, and healing come together for families with a loved one battling addiction. All right. Welcome to another episode of When God Intervenes. I'm here with Rene today. And Rob and I just crossed paths recently, and he's really got an interesting story. I'm going to find out more about that today along with you. And I think he'll have a lot of interesting things to say, especially along the health front. I know a lot of parents that I work with out there. Um, one of the things that we stress, Rob, is self-care, and taking care of your health is part of that. So
For
so
sure.
we'll wrap that into what we're talking about today. So why don't we start out with your story? You're a top level you were a top level athlete, and why don't you tell us about that story about what was your sport and how you got into that and what all transpired there.
Yeah, sounds good. That's a really impactful part of my life story is kind of my youth, right? When I was young, I was in all sorts of athletic endeavors. My parents were really good at that. But one of the things I found I was really good at was running. And my middle brother was 4 years older than I was. And he was like, when the start of my running interest, he was at a 10K run my mom was taking him, and he 4 years older than I was just a young whippersnapper in long pants and long sleeve shirt, I believe. And we went to this 10K to watch my brother run one of those fun runs on the weekend. And while we were there, he was warming up, and the race was about to start. I saw this other little boy running around that was about my age, and he had a singlet on and nice running shoes, and he was out warming up. And I was like, looked at him. I looked at my mom and said, "Can I run this?" And she's like, it's surprising, says, "You want to run a 10K?" I was like, "I don't know if he can do it. I can probably do it." And so I went and did my first 10K run and had no idea what I was doing and what I was getting myself into. But I did it in my tennis shoes and long pants, and I ended up beating that boy that I saw warming up. And I was like, maybe this is something I have some talent in. And after that period, I started trying to actually work out and do running, and just something I had a natural ability in. And then in middle school and high school, I did really well. I was won a national cross country championship, and was had a goal to be. I got a full ride running scholarship to a Division I school, and my life goal at that period was to be a professional runner. One of the things that was important to my story, though, is during that period, I read a book that was impactful. It's called Eat to Win. And that book was really it helped me a lot in my running because I learned how to fuel my body appropriately. And so I think that was really important, and it comes into my story later on of why that was so impactful. But my running, was my life at that point. I was like, I was doing pretty decent in school, but my main objective was to be a professional runner. And I made the U.S. junior team, which was the 19 years and younger. I was the second best miler in the country. and just won an international race, or an actual, yeah, it was international. I had raced against 5 other countries, and I won that race, and beat the boy who beat me at our national championship. So I was just really on a high. Things were going really well, and my coaches thought I would be a professional runner. And then all of a sudden, I was out on a training run in the winter in Utah, and we're out on a 10-mile training run, and snowy uh, day, and roads were snow covered, and I was out, and my buddy and I were running, and he yelled my name when we were running. He was running behind me, and I turned around to see this 4x4 truck coming, and it was just literally, there's nowhere I could go, nothing I could do. I said, I'm gonna get hit, I'm gonna get hit. And it slid right into me, and hit me in the hip and threw me 36 feet. And I landed
Wow.
straight on my face, and then my knees, and I was unconscious. So it literally knocked me out. And then I had a bloody nose earlier in the run. And that bloody nose clogged up my throat. So there I was in really bad shape. I'm unconscious on the side of the road, bloody, and not breathing. So it was
Mhm.
really dangerous situation, where more than likely, if I was hadn't gotten my throat cleared by my friend, I probably would have died that day. So thank
Wow.
God, ever since that period, I've known God has a plan for my life, because I should have died on that
Mm.
snowy, wintry day. And so I always look back at that as like, okay, Lord, I understand you have a plan for my life, but what is it? And I wasn't sure for a really long time, but I am so excited now, just because I really honestly believe that He's trained me my entire life for what I'm doing today. So that was a
Mhm.
big part
Mhm.
of my story, though, was that accident, took me from where I wanted to be and where I thought I was going. And then, God had a different plan.
Right.
It wasn't to be a professional runner.
Yeah. 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 It seems to work that way quite often, and there's a lot of overlaps. There are a lot of parallels in our stories too. Did you just have the one brother?
Yeah, I have two. I'm the baby, so I have one brother that's 4 years older, and then another one that's 7.
Okay.
And so, yeah, my middle was and still is my mentor. He and I are
Hmm.
really close, and I followed him a lot, and he's really helped me, great deal throughout my entire life. And now he's a minister, and so he's
Okay.
helping me a lot, even with my spiritual walk. But
Hmm. Hmm.
it's a lot of fun.
I have an older brother who is my was a mentor to me when I was coming along, and he was a helicopter pilot, and
Oh, awesome.
I started out my career, my aviation career, really young. But so he was a big inspiration to me, and then I ended up having we raised two boys, Justin and Chase, 7 years apart, and so I mean there's a lot there to that story as well. And both of them played high school football,
Mhm.
um, and played college football as well. On a Division II level. But but anyway, so there are a lot of sort of parallels there in our
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and I survived a helicopter crash too when I
Wow.
was in my
Wow.
20s.
Yeah. That's
uh,
amazing. Yeah.
so, so tell me, so after the crash, where did you go from there? How did things begin to transpire? Like, I mean, tell me about the recovery a little bit. They had to have been pretty rough.
Yeah, the next year plus was really difficult for me. I literally, I tried to make a comeback,
Hmm.
and but I really went through a bad period where my since I was a runner, and I'd run for maybe 10 years straight at that time when I got hit, because I started when I was young, and then my body just ballooned. Not necessarily fat, but my muscles grew quite a bit when I
Hmm.
during that accident, or after that accident. And so when I tried to make the comeback after my body healed, I really had a rough time during the initial part of the recovery, because I remember waking up the second day, and this one side of my face was just huge. It was just ginormous, and I
Mm.
looked in the mirror, and I just started bawling because it was just like, um, I thought I was going to look like that the rest of my life. I really did. I was
Right.
just like that. That was my face was, not a great looking face, but a normal face. And then all of a sudden I look like, and I had no disrespect for anybody who has deformities at all. But I saw that and I was just like, I like the elephant man. That was the thing that it came to my mind. And I was
Hmm.
just like, just disheartened and really depressed. And it's like, no one's going to love me. I'm going to look like a really weird person the rest of my life. And it was really really tough. So that was hard, and then just the physical recovery, trying to get back to try to get my body back. I broke my pelvis in a couple places, broke my kneecap, and
Hmm.
it was a mess.
Yeah.
And so I just kept trying, kept trying. It's just like, and then I got really depressed when I was not able to do that because that was my goal, right? That was my goal in life, and it was just gone in an instant. And then the recovery to try to get back there wasn't working. So I went through this period of just really depressed and frustrated, and it was difficult. But I did have a good education to fall back on. That
Hmm.
thank goodness for my brother mentor, right? He really instilled that into me. So I did get my degree, and I started working full time, and I went into enterprise sales, and I had a good long run in the enterprise space, selling enterprise software. But um, I never felt fulfilled. It was like
Right.
I just did what the world told you to do. What the
Mm.
world told me to do at that period was to go to college, get your college degree, go work for a large corporation, work full time, have 3 kids, have a white picket fence, and then watch sports at night, and
Hmm.
play fantasy football. And then, oh, these new gaming systems are out. You got to have the new gaming systems to play Call of Duty. And it was like I,
Right.
I was busy doing what the world was telling me to do rather than what God, the Lord was telling me to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it really, in my opinion, the second truck that hit me had just as big an impact as the first one. And the second truck is I call it a truck. It's a metaphorical truck, but it's the same truck that hit you, Daryl. Is
Yeah.
the pandemic, right? The pandemic hit all of us,
Hmm.
and it hit me in a similar way. It was like my entire life changed from that
Yeah.
period on. When the pandemic hit, I lost my sales job, and like, okay, there's my something I've been doing for 20 years, and now it's gone. And then, but what it did for me was gave me time to sit back and look what's going on in the world. And so during the early days of the pandemic, it was really scary. Everybody was scared. You're like, what the heck is going on? Our whole world is going upside down. And
Hmm.
then back to that book. Remember that book I read called Eat to Win? So I'm like, okay, I need to go back, and in order to save myself and save my family, I need to make sure we start putting the right nutrients in our body, because I know from my past how important that is. And then I saw the vilification of this doctor who was just recommending vitamin D. And I'm like, vitamin D is, from God, right? It's the sun. He created the sun, and it's a total natural thing. So why is that bad? I was like, let me see. So I started doing research, right? Why are they vilifying this guy? And what would give them a motivation to vilify him? And is he wrong? Is vitamin D really bad? I
Hmm.
wanted to know. And what I found out, that vitamin D is not bad what at all. At all, it's just a natural occurring element. It's actually very important for our bodies. And then so I'm like, okay, there's got to be a reason why they're vilifying him. So then I started doing research on the whole medical system, and man, what I uncovered was really disheartening, because I was like,
Hmm.
wow, I realized that I've been lied to my entire life. And our
Uh,
medical system is really set up in a really bad way. It's set up, it's incentivized everybody incorrectly. So our doctors and nurses, I think, are great people, and a lot of them have incredible hearts to try to help people. But the way that it's incentivized is just it's horrible, because big pharma has been able to capture our medical institutions. And even back in the early 1900s, I found out that the our medical schools were really changed in a bad way. The medical schools, they used this report called the Flexner report to change our medical schools. And that you could, back there, that Rockefellers owned the oil back then, and they instituted this. They took this Flexner report and then changed our medical schools to be, you could only get a job in the medical field if you went to one of the medical schools, and the
Right.
medical schools only taught pharmaceutical based medicine. And there were, at that point in the early 1900s, about 50% of our practitioners were holistic, healthy practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
And to talk about nutrition and what God put on this earth that we use to help us. And now, if you fast forward 100 years, 100+ years, and look at the number of holistic practitioners is like 0.1%, not even
Mm-hmm.
1%, but like 0.1%. So they've done a fantastic job of just pushing that under the rug, that
Yep.
of what God gave us and what God put on this earth is sufficient enough to help us in a lot of cases, right? And so anyway, that was really fascinating for me to uncover what I call the corruption of our health system and our health in
Mm-hmm.
general was that. So then I'm like, what can I do, right? How can I help this world? How can I help my family? And then how can I help the world? And so I'm just one little guy that God put on this earth, but I think that I can make an impact. So I'm like, I started doing research on ways to help people. And that's where I ended up going into the health field, as I started looking at supplements I could help create for people. And the initial research I was doing is working with this great formulator. He's like, have you ever heard of quantum energy? I was like, quantum what? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
never. I've heard the word quantum, but that was about it. And he
Mm-hmm.
introduced to me to this mad scientist who's been working on these skin patches for 30 years that have a frequency on them instead of medicine. And so I did research on it, and I didn't believe it at first. I'm like, come on, you're going to put a little sticker on me, and it has no medicine on it. It's going to help me. That didn't make any sense to me. But I started doing research on the human body and how we're made up of energy and how frequencies work. At first, I thought frequencies were weird, right? It's like sound, it's a big word. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it sounds strange. But then I started realizing that, every single thing we have, like, our cell phones are made of, utilize frequencies. Light is a frequency, sound is a frequency. So
Yep.
then I realized frequencies aren't strange. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can have impact. And the human body is really, I love the way God made his incredibly complex body.
Yep.
That works even down to the cellular level. It interacts from cell to cell via vibrations. And those vibrations give off, guess what? A frequency. And so those frequencies it gives off, but it can interact with a frequency. So then
Mm-hmm.
you start realizing, oh my gosh, God created this incredible world that gives off frequencies and interacts. And then even down to the way our body is created, it can receive and give off frequencies. So these little patches actually can have a big impact on the body naturally. So that was really fascinating. So I went down that path, and I have a company that we sell those skin patches, and that's fantastic. But at the whole time I was doing that, I'm like, how can I really get to the core? One of our main products was a pain relief product, and
Uh-huh.
that's why I ended up creating my podcast. I have a podcast called I Am Pain Free. And
Mm-hmm.
I created that podcast because I was doing all that medical research that I mentioned earlier. I found out that 50% of our seniors have some type of pain and or chronic pain. It's like 50% of them. So it's like a really dramatic number. And you start looking at our society, that's a really, really large number of people. So I'm like, how can I help the world? So I started doing interviews with all these holistic practitioners, and it was really fascinating because, like, how do you help people? what do you do? How do you do it? And what methodologies do you use? And it's just been really fun because each one of them has a little bit different angle, and they use little bit different products, and they use a little different things. And but at the end of the day, probably 80% of them talk about the core of your body, right? Your gut. Your gut health is so important to your health. And when
Yep.
you can control your gut health, then guess what how God made our bodies so wonderfully and fearfully, right? That it starts operating, your organs start operating the way they're supposed to be. And inflammation is the source of most people's pain. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you have a
Mm-hmm.
bad gut, your body is inflamed, and then guess what? You have pain. So if you back it up a little bit, say, hey, how can I help the your gut health get healthy? Then all your organs are starting to work well, and then guess what starts reducing? Right, the inflammation starts reducing, and then you can start becoming healthy. So that whole process was really fascinating for me to learn. So I'm like, okay, this is awesome. How can I use? And the Lord kept getting during this period where I was starting to do all this research. I really
Uh-huh.
had an amazing relationship with the Lord, because that's when I got into the Bible. I'm like, okay, I have time to research things. So guess what? I was researching medical, corruption. I was researching the corruption in our communications, how Mockingbird Media is controlling information. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next thing was the Bible. I'm like, okay, this is a worrisome time in our world. I better get. I've went to church most of my life, but I was one of those people that I loved going to church, but then on Sunday afternoon, as soon as the door hit me in the butt, I didn't think about church until the next Sunday morning, right? And it was not
Uh-huh.
really an important part of my life. Now it became a really important part of my life. I'm in the Word every day. I'm going to church, 3 different times a week, and I started getting in this men's club, or men's, not club, but this men's organization in Dallas. I moved to Dallas, Texas from Oregon. That was a big move that the Lord prompted me to do. And then in Texas, so I go to this men's group that's 300 men that are all shapes and colors and sizes and tattoos
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, and some are really out of shape, and some are like just muscle men. And it's really fascinating because this is like the hodgepodge of every male in the country, and they all come together, and they're all on fire for Christ. So it's like, amen, this is amazing. And every men's group I've ever seen growing up was 2 or 3 people, and it was always the suit and tie guy, and
Right.
the preacher who was like, oh, he better bow down to him, and people that
Uh-huh.
were way smarter than me. And so I always felt intimidated. And here
Mm-hmm.
I'm in this group where it's like, man, I feel comfortable here, and is really fascinating to see that, because that just transformed my belief that, geez, you don't need to be a preacher to understand the word.
Right.
you
Right.
know
You
and
know, I think I shared with you the other day when we were talking. I happen to be a preacher's kid,
yeah, that's awesome.
and uh, and I grew up in the church, but and got saved when I was like 7. But I mean, there's so many other things that have happened along the way, that have just really opened my eyes to different things. But going back to 2020, what you brought it with that, I mean that really changed my views of a lot of things. Everything that happened with COVID, all of
Yeah,
that, just really changed my views a lot. And I shared with you that I shared this with you also off camera the other day when we were
right.
talking a little bit, that um, I was having some issues with my health. Um, Not too long after COVID, that I was having some headaches that were chronic headaches, and I finally realized that my blood pressure was elevated. It wasn't technically high, but it was just right there. And I also realized that I was probably pre-diabetic, and my energy levels were in the tank. And I started going online and doing research. And
Awesome.
you know I've always been kind of a health nut in terms of exercise and diet, but there were things I was doing wrong that I didn't realize I was doing wrong because I didn't have the right information.
Right. Right.
And when
It's
I
kind of
changed
hidden.
those,
it's not easy to find, right?
it's not.
It's
You're
so
right.
sad.
You have to go on a quest. You have to
Yes.
really go looking for that information. And yeah, but when I began to apply it, it completely changed. I lost like 30 pounds in a few months, and I got my blood pressure back under control, and a lot of things have changed. But man, I've got more questions for you later because
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
seems like the more things that the better I get, the healthier I get, and the more I learn. It's like there's still, I'm 63 years old. Little things come up, and I'm like, wait, what is the answer to this? I know there's an answer out there somewhere, but what is this? So
Right.
anyway, yeah, there's some things I'd like to quiz you about later.
Yeah,
Uh,
it'll be fun. That's what's
yeah,
fascinating is we're always learning, and God created this incredible machine. I saw this meme just the other day that was pretty funny. It was like the parts of the human body all in one big square, and it had the head
mm,
here and the arms here and the chest here, and all kind of separated, and it showed all of the nerves and the blood vessels, and it's this like really complex diagram with all this stuff, and it's like you look at it and you're like, holy smokes, there's a lot to that. And then it says
yeah,
the meme was like, and people say there's no creator, right? It's like, well,
right.
of course there's a designer and a creator of this most incredible machine probably ever built, and that's our human body, right? And
Hmm, hmm.
so you look at that and it's like, okay, yeah, there obviously had to be a divine designer with this incredible human body that we have, because when you look at the intricacies of it, it's just absolutely phenomenal. So that's what's fascinating for me is, man, our bodies are wonderfully and fearfully made as the Bible tells us, but then it's like you looking at it, it's like, oh wow, the nervous system itself is amazing, the
Yeah,
circulatory system is amazing, the way the heart works, it's amazing. Then you talk about the brain, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to the brain that it's amazing. So there's so many things you
how
can
it's
go
all
into. Yeah,
and how it's all interconnected, and how it all works together so
yeah,
seamlessly. Um, so, so tell me a little bit about. Let's see, you've talked about your company QE, right?
yeah.
Quantum Energy, um, and then so you developed is Exodus is the product that you're
Yeah,
describing.
so that's what's been so fun is during that period when I was doing a lot of research on ingredients, I'm like, how can I really help people? I mentioned the podcast, and I went on to a little divergence there, but that podcast, the reason why I interviewed all those doctors, a lot of the things I learned, right, was that gut health I mentioned, and then inflammation reduction is so important. So I'm like, okay, this is awesome. So Lord, where in the Bible does it tell me, ingredients that I can use to help people? And he just kept sending me back to the word. And I was researching a lot of the Bible on herbs and superfoods and what's in there and what's the healing. The Lord heals people in amazing ways, but there's also
Mhm.
the balm of Gilead is one, for example, that, if we could find the balm of Gilead, we'd have a much healthier world, because it was just a healing ointment, right? And it's like, I want to find that. And then you'd go to Revelations, right? And Revelation tells you that the tree of life is, and the leaves of the tree of life are made for healing. And
Mm,
so it's like, wow, he put so much on this earth for us. So I was just trying to research, like, what is in there? And I wanted to find something that I could use for the human body to help with that inflammation, because our patches are great. The people that have chronic pain for 20 years will use our patches, and they feel really good. Their pain just is not there when they're using the patch. But
mhm,
when they take the patch off, the pain is a lot of times typically there still. So it's not solving the underlying problem. So I'm like, how can we fix the underlying problem? And so that's when I started doing that research, and it is fascinating. But I've found like 20 plus herbs and superfoods that were there, and I was trying to find all sorts of combinations that would be that special one. It's like, God ordained solution that just no one's ever found, and that I was able to find it, and I
mm,
couldn't find that. But then the Lord did it in a different way, and He's so amazing. He introduced me to this practitioner in California who I'd been praying for, and he'd been praying for me. He had this molecular hydrogen blend that he had used, and it's got really amazing health benefits. but he wanted to add something special to it. So when I was meeting with him, he was talking to me about this molecular hydrogen blend, and I was like, that's actually perfect. If we take my biblical ingredients and the right combination of those, and we add your molecular hydrogen blend to it, the actual end result is something that no one on earth has ever created, that God had pointed us both to, because he was looking for me, I was looking for him, and we
Mm-hmm.
created this product called Exodus that takes the 7 best complementary ingredients to the molecular hydrogen, and then when you look at the science behind molecular hydrogen and how hydrogen helps the human body inside, it's phenomenal. And there's been thousands of research studies already done on hydrogen. So when we took the combination of the two, it's really incredible. It's like really special. No other product on earth does it. The 7 biblical ingredients are fun. It's organic barley grass and organic wheatgrass, which give all the nutrients that you need for the day. So it gives you a lot of energy. So like you mentioned that, people like your old self would have used Exodus and they get the energy they need throughout the day. Then it's got saffron, which is amazing for stress and anti-anxiety. And oh my gosh, who in this day and age doesn't have a level of stress, right? There's so many
Mm-hmm.
people that have depression and anxiety that it's just going through the roof. And so saffron is amazing, helping that. Then you look at cumin, aloe. Those help with aloe helps with gut health, like I mentioned earlier. But then you take cumin, frankincense, and myrrh. The other 3, the combination of those really help with that inflammation relief. So then you start reducing the inflammation, and guess what goes away, right? Then those aches and pains that you have can go away when the inflammation is reduced. But then we haven't talked about molecular hydrogen. Though you look at molecular hydrogen, what it does, it's phenomenal. The cool thing about molecular hydrogen, probably the quickest way I can explain it, is it acts as a master antioxidant. So it goes into your bloodstream and then gets rid of the free radicals inside your bloodstream. So the bad things, the things you don't want in your bloodstream, it gets rid
Mm-hmm.
of, and then it helps the mitochondrial process work more efficiently and effectively. So you combine our 7 biblical ingredients with the molecular hydrogen, and it's just a product that is unmatched. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I've seen a few people kind of pushing the hydrogenated water
Yes,
online
yes.
recently. That seems to be a thing right now.
It is. It's
Um,
really, in fact, I love that conversation because I will use that hydrogen water because it's better than no water. But the fun
mhm,
thing about that, from my perspective, is when those you hit the button and it creates hydrogen,
mhm,
you have to drink it immediately or it diffuses.
uh-huh,
And then the problem when you do drink it, it goes into your mouth and in your esophagus, into your stomach. Then it takes up to 10 minutes, right, to assimilate into the body. So the
mhm.
whole time it's diffusing. So there's not as much hydrogen by the time it made it to the time it gets into your bloodstream.
That
There's
makes
not
sense.
much there.
Mhm,
So what's cool about our product is it's a particular blend that does it's not hydrogen starting with, right? Hydrogen is very dangerous in and of itself, but
mhm.
when you take this blend that we have, when you ingest it, goes into your stomach, and then it interacts with your bodily fluid, your body creates the hydrogen. So that's what's so cool. Your body's actually creating it. And then since your body creates it, your body assimilates it much more powerfully than trying to drink it from water. And so when it goes into your bloodstream, it has these little micro nanobubbles that cross the blood brain barrier as well as the gut brain or the gut barrier as well. So it is really, really impactful and way more powerful than any other way to get hydrogen inside the body. So that's I'm glad you said that because it's important. I still
Mm,
will do that versus non-hydrogenated
right.
water, but it's not near as impactful
Yeah.
as our product. But
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a
yeah,
lot of sense. My youngest son is a chemistry. He's in a chemistry PhD program, and doesn't
awesome.
know the biology side of things about as much. But this will be an interesting conversation to have with him.
Yeah, he'll be fascinated if you
Yeah.
look at then you go to there's 2 websites that are really cool. You go to hydrogenstudies.com
Hmm.
or molecularhydrogenstudies.com, and it shows you the thousands of studies that have been done already on hydrogen. And then a lot of them are on animals, but there's a lot of them on the human body. And you can go
Mm-hmm.
look up any ailment. You say, okay, what about, diabetes? What about, cardiovascular disease? What in it, it'll show you all the scientific, reports that have already been done and studies. So it's really fascinating to see all those benefits. And then you say, okay, if I have all those benefits and I add these biblical ingredients that have lots of benefits too, and you combine them, and then guess what? That's what Exodus is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's our new product. And then me being a man of faith, we wanted to do something really different and special in the respect that we created these prayer guides that go with the product. So this prayer guide is really important. Every day it has Monday through Sunday on these prayer guides, and we literally want you to read them and use your eyes to read it and your mouth to do what? To declare it, right?
Right.
If you use
Yeah.
your mouth to declare it, there's power in the tongue, as the Bible tells us. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're listening to yourself say it. So using your ears, your eyes, your mouth, and then you use the supplement that's going inside the body, and in combination. And we believe that combination of actually praying, because it's got a positive intention, it's got a verse that you're saying out loud, and a prayer. And so our goal in the mission at the company is to get 1 million new people to be reading the Word through their health. So they're using this prayer guide every day when they're taking the supplement, saying, "Hey, Lord, help me." And there's literally, what's today? Today, let's just say today is a Monday, right? So it's, Father, thank you for the blessings found in the book of Exodus. And then the verse we have you read is Exodus 23, 25 through 26. You shall serve and worship the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. I will take sickness away from among you. None shall miscarry or be barren in the land. I will fill the number of your days. And then you say, I receive his promise of blessing, my food and water, taking sickness away from me and giving me a full lifespan. In the name of Jesus, amen. So there you
I
go.
like that.
Right? So,
Yeah, I have sort of a morning routine that I go through most mornings, and part of it is I have a group of scripture verses that I've identified that I read every morning as
awesome.
sort of as positive affirmations. So I love what you're doing with that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's really
Uh,
important. The mind is so powerful, and prayer is so powerful.
yep.
And that's what's, I believe that the combination of those, and hey, if the Lord decides to heal somebody, then all it was me just prompting them to pray, then,
Hmm.
amen, right? I'm so happy that I was just the prompter to get them to pray. And
I was recently having some issues with I was having cramps at night in my calves.
oh, right.
And I was doing the research and I was looking at all of the potential issue, what was causing it, what could be some of the things that could help. And I was getting some relief, but it was still bothering me pretty bad. And so my discipleship group that meets here at our house every week, we prayed about it, and um, with they were gone, they haven't come back. And I told my wife the other day, I said, I don't know what I'm doing different. She said, you prayed about it.
That's right. That's right. I mean, there's so much power in that. There really is. It's
Yeah,
it's
there
incredible
really
what
is.
what
Yeah.
what can happen.
Sometimes God gives us the answers, and sometimes He just
He
solves the
just
problem.
provides them. Right. Right. He works
Um,
in mysterious ways, right? That's why that's so fun just to go through this life right now, because like I mentioned earlier, I finally feel like I'm in my calling. It's like he
mhm,
trained me to be, as an athlete when I was young, and learn how the body works, and learn how nutrition works, and learn how to be a really high performer. And then boom, yeah, that was gone. Boom, that was done. It's like, nope, that's okay, you're done with that. You got to go on to the next thing. And the next thing was, I think, communication, right? How do I speak to people, and how do I communicate, and how do I talk to them about a particular topic to get them to understand it, right? So I spent
mhm,
25 years in enterprise sales, and that enterprise sales was being able to talk to groups of people and individuals, as well as large groups of people, to have conversations. So he's training me how to do that. And then boom, the pandemic hits. He says, okay, let's start putting these things together.
right.
And I
Yeah.
had no idea. I'm just like, oh my gosh, Lord, what do you want me to do? And now that I've been in the Word a lot, I'm just like really trying to let Him lead, and I'm just like, okay, Lord, here's all of my plans, and I know my plans suck. So what do you want me to do? Right? You tell me your plan, and I just going to be obedient. And I'm going to follow. And man, I've been following that for the last 4 or 5 years, and it's so exciting to see the change in my life, and just everything that He's leading me to is it's His timing, it's His direction, and I'm just like, okay, Lord, thank you for introducing me to Daryl, right? And thank you for letting us have this conversation. And how do you want me to have this conversation? What do you want these listeners to learn, from this conversation? And how can we help people? And how can we help one other person? Right? If it's just, hey, I can have an unhealthy body and I can get better and I can do it for free. Maybe that's it. Or hey, maybe I have a lot of stress, and I know that if I can get in the Word and I can do my daily prayers and I can talk about it, then guess what? Maybe the stress will be reduced. There's so many things and ways we can help people, but I do like to say three things just from a physical health perspective that is 100% free. That I always like to say, because it's people are like, okay, what's the secret to being healthy? There is no specific secret, but I do believe that God created this wonderful body, and if we do these three things, it will help you get better, and help you get well. First one is just having enough water. Hydration is so important to our body, and most people don't drink enough. So I'm a 200-pound person. I need to drink 100 ounces of water every day. So so you take a half an ounce for every pound of body weight you have, and make sure you drink that much water every single day. So you get that in your body, and it's amazing how your body utilizes that, right? We're 60% water, or 70%, depending upon what research article you read. But our bodies are, water is super important to the body. And then remember that vitamin D discussion I mentioned about the doctors. Like, the sun is so important to our body and our health, right? We don't have life without the sun, right? We don't have the oxygen in our world without sun. So direct sun, I think, is really important to the body. And then the third one is grounding, which is surprising to me, but it's the 100% free. I can sell you a $5,000 grounding mat that you can put in your office, and you can put your feet on it, or you can just do it
Walk outside.
100% free by taking your socks and shoes off and go outside. Get your
Yep.
feet on the grass and the dirt, and that it just recharges your electricity in your body. It's just, you
Mm.
discharge the bat, and all of a sudden you get good energy through the earth. And it's like, when people told me about earthing or grounding, 5 years ago, I was like, give me a break, right? Come on,
All
that
right.
can't help. And now the more research I do is like, oh my gosh, has a huge benefit. So those are three
Mm-hmm.
things I love to tell people, because they're 100% free. Everybody can do it. And if you do those three things, then guess what? You're going to start having a little bit more energy. Your body's going to start feeling a little bit better. And then you're like, hey, this getting healthy thing isn't so hard. All I'm doing is
Right.
drinking water, getting some sun and doing some grounding, and then guess what? We can start going to level 4, 5, and 6. They're also
Mhm.
free, and there's other things you can do that are just amazing for your body. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm on a mission for. I really feel I'm a warrior for people's health and their faith. If I can get them healthy, then guess what? They can have a better impact on the kingdom.
That's right.
Without their health, they're going to be sitting on the couch and not having an impact on the kingdom that they could and or should have. So I want to activate people to get well and get healthy, so then you can go have a better and bigger impact on the kingdom.
That's great. I love it. That's a great mission. I love it. I love it.
It's
And
it's it's important.
as I was sharing with you earlier, I'm 63 years old, and I mean, as we age, we're going to age, right? But
Yeah,
as we age, I mean, we can sort of, we can stay young
we
to an
can.
extent. We can manage our health so that we can still have more energy than most people our age,
That's
and
right.
still
That's
feel
right.
a lot younger than our biological age.
Yes,
And
and yeah, and there's never too late, right? You can always go back and say, okay, let's start now. right? And
Yeah.
then you start now, and you don't have to make huge transformations. Just make just some small habits, and those small
Yep.
habits can then you'll start feeling better. You're like, hey, this gets a little bit addicting because it feels good. Like, how can
Mhm.
I then? What's the next level, right? I mentioned there's other levels after the first three I told you. Then you go to 4, 5, and 6, and they're also free, and they also help a lot. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm gonna start doing it. Then you start sharing it with your friends, and you start sharing it with your loved ones, and then they start doing it as well. And then pretty soon you have this cohesive family that is working together, and they're getting healthy. And then guess what? Let's pray together, and let's having a way to impact the kingdom, and share the love of the Lord with other people. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to trying to have an impact on.
Yeah. Just talking about my audience really quickly, I maybe touched on it a little bit earlier, but it is mostly parents who have a son or daughter battling addiction.
Yes,
And there is a lot of stress there. We talked about stress earlier. And so, yeah, I think I'm always encouraging them to look for alternative ways to improve your health without turning to pharmaceuticals, because
that's right.
every pharmaceutical, every drug that's out there like that has some type of a side effect, and it's like sometimes the side effect is worse than the condition you had to begin
That's
with.
right.
And
That's
and
right.
I've run across people who take one drug, and then they take another drug to counteract the side effects of that drug, and another drug, and the next thing you know, they're on 5 or 6 different pharmaceuticals or more.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Why do I feel so bad?"
It's so important what you're saying, because it's so
Yeah,
so true. The every single drug has a side effect or more, and
yeah,
then we just get into this cycle, right, where you go, and our doctors are specialized in one specific area. They're not looking at the person or body as a holistic thing. So they'll give you this pill, and this pill will maybe help that one little thing, but then it causes these three others. And then
hmm,
our average senior is takes 15 different prescription medications in a year. 15, right? That's
wow,
just, it's ridiculous, right? So
yeah.
it's just way too much, because they do the exact same thing you just discussed. So I'm a recovering alcoholic. I don't know if we talked about that in my
Oh, that's
story,
right. We haven't
but
talked about that today.
yeah,
Yeah.
I drank alcohol straight for 25 years probably. And I was a highly functional alcoholic, but who cares? I was still an alcoholic. I'm 6 years sober now, and I'm just I am so much more clear in my thinking and thought, and I feel so much better physically. I was
Hmm.
way out of shape. I was way overweight. I couldn't run 100 yards, and now run 3 to 5 miles, 3 to 5 times a week. I lift weights 4 or 5 times a week, and I'm just very active and healthy. And I want to give the people that you're in your audience hope, right? That I did this in my 50s. I literally used the Lord and my wife, and just my mindset that I can do this by myself. I didn't want to go to a program. Some people need a program. I didn't want to go to a program, but I just said, Lord, help me through this problem. I know I've got a problem. Help me do it. So I did. I was smart. I did my research and said, oh my gosh, with alcohol addiction, if it depends on how bad your body is addicted, if you just stop, you can kill yourself. Which I was like,
Right.
well, that sucks. I don't want to kill myself. so so
Right.
I went. I did go to a doctor, and I said, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to
Mm,
stop drinking. What's a way that I can help with that where I don't kill myself? And so he gave
mhm,
me medication, I think, for the first 2 weeks of my stopping, that helped with the withdrawal symptoms. And yeah, I think I took them for a week, maybe two, and then I was able to do it by myself. And and it was tough. Obviously, anybody who does that is hard, but at the same point, I've felt like the Lord, I just prayed every single day, Lord, help me through this. I know you can do it. I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to make this happen. And my wife was really supportive, and she helped me every step of the way. And between the Lord and her, I was able to do it without drugs. Did that for the first little while, just because I didn't want to have the withdrawals that would kill me. But
Hmm.
ever since then, I've been 100% free, like no alcohol whatsoever, and I don't have a desire for it anymore, which is really amazing. It's like once you get it out of your system, you can lose that desire, and then the our society pushes it so much, right?
Yeah.
Alcohol is everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's in every social situation. So now I'm not afraid of those at all either. I go in and I go have my club soda and lime, right? And I have a club soda and lime. It looks like I have my vodka soda that I used to drink, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel uncomfortable because I'm in the social situation and I'm drinking my club soda, and I have way more fun than they do because they're killing themselves every drink that they're drinking, and I'm getting healthy. So I explain that to all of them when I'm doing it as well. So I'm using my personal situation as a light and a way to help other people say, hey, I was in the corporate world like you. I was incentivized to take my clients out to drink. That's what I did for a job for a long, long time. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, I can help you. I did it. If I did it, you can do it too. So I encourage them with that. And then even our Exodus supplement with that saffron to help with that stress and anxiety is really, really tough. Even for the people who are addicted, that's a really good product. Natural vitamins and supplements that help them as well as you going through that process of trying to help them through it. It's a great product for. But anyway,
Yeah. That sounds really interesting. So, Rob, tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you. I know you have a podcast too, and I know you have a website out there where they can find your products. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
sounds great. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is through Exodus Strong. So it's just like Exodus in the book, EXODUS, then Strong, STRONG. So notice there's two S's in that, Exodus, and then strong.com is the easiest way to find me. And then I do have my I Am Pain Free podcast. So I have a website, IamPainFree.com, but then the podcast, you can find me on any of the podcasting solutions out there. And I'm having a blast just trying to help people with their health naturally and faithfully.
Well, good. Well, Rob, it's been a pleasure having you here and spending a little bit of time getting to know you better and hearing your story. And thank you so much for sharing it with me and with my listeners today, and just sharing what you're doing and how God is leading you through this journey. Discovery is what keeps me going. It's one of the things that keeps me going. Is I'm just so curious about this world that we live in,
Yeah,
and about the human body and this just all of God's creation. We'll just learn a fraction of what's out there to know, right? So there's always new things to learn. But
there's
I've
so much to learn. So much to
there is,
learn.
yeah. I've
God
really,
is a big God, right? He's
oh
he's a
man,
he's a big
it's
God and a
amazing.
good God.
The more I learn, the more I realize how little I know, right?
Oh, seriously. Yep. Yep.
um,
It's incredible. But I think it's fascinating that they're just so yeah, I'm just excited to share this time with you. I really appreciate it, and I'm hoping we help one person.
yep, yep, absolutely. Well, thanks, Rob. Again, thank you, and we'll see you. I'll see you soon.
Sounds fantastic. God bless you.
You too. Thank you for tuning in to When God Intervenes. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more families in need of hope and healing. For more resources and support, visit our website at thefamilyrecoverycoach.com. Until next time, stay strong and keep the faith.